Here's a few examples of clients I've worked with in the last 6 to 12 months. And what I find is the client estimate is always greater than the actual average transaction value. Now, why is that? My thought is business people tend to be fairly positive people. They like to remember the big wins they have. They like to think of all the higher price products and the high margin things they sell. If you didn't think like that, generally you wouldn't be in business, would you? The first one there is a solicitor. So I can talk about him. He's not here tonight. That's fine. We won't crack any lawyer jokes or anything, I don't think, will we? Now, if I asked you, what would you think an average suburban lawyer's invoice value would be? A lot of people would probably start in the multiple thousands and go upwards from there. This led to a conversation, and that's what a lot of this analysis is about, creating a conversation with the people who run your business and help advise you to see where that leads, to see what, with the right team around you, you can do with your business. So this conversation, his estimate was about $850 average value. The reality is about $440. Now that sounds pretty low, and it is, but it is for a reason, and this is what came out in the conversation, that he worked out his clients didn't like big bills. Okay, coming from a lawyer, that's not really earth-breaking news, is it? But what it prevented from happening was clients A, getting nasty surprises, B, taking forever to pay them, or C, not paying them at all. But his strategy of basically billing his clients when they got to that sort of number, which is about an hour's work for a lawyer these days, meant that they got bills they virtually expected because they'd just been dealing with him, bills that weren't overly large, bills that they were happy to pay because there was no surprise in it, and then they moved on from there. So this strategy of having really low invoices for him actually worked. He had virtually no debtors write-offs, and he actually had the lowest work in progress, which is unbilled work, I think, of any law practice in the country. Now, when I had that conversation with him and we got to that point, I gave him a huge tick. At that value, I was giving him across, but the conversation evolved around why he did it, his business strategy around it, and why it was actually good. What we then got out of it was that he was also billing too many really small bills. So what we implemented was a minimum bill and a minimum price, under which you just wouldn't do because the admin costs and the time and the hassle aren't worth it. So we actually ended up increasing that average transaction value by having the conversation, implementing a minimum bill or a minimum fee that they would bill at and go on from there. So it worked really well, both to explain and confirm his strategy as being great for him and his client base, and for us as advisors to come in and pick a few little problems with it, tweak it and move on and improve the system. Improved his business and improved his profitability. So that number to me can be used in every business in any way as a great indicator of what's actually happening. The others there are fairly consistent. The bottom one's an interesting one. That's about right. The clients knew very well what they were doing. That's a conveyancing firm where they basically have one standard transaction. They have only one or two large clients that they get a feed from. So they were spot on in terms of what they thought their average was, which is good. So it means they know what they're doing. The issue with it was that it hardly moved for about 3 years. So when you're looking at it as part of the conversation, the last 3 years I think were about 980, 990 and 1,000. So you can see it, you can understand it, but as a business strategy and a profit-making strategy, it really wasn't working. So we're having some discussions around that and all the things that go into that, volume, pricing, client base, all that sort of thing, to see what we can do with it.